Listen to the vibes.
Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Vibes. And I'm very happy to welcome Mark Connor here, who is, well, you were a boxer. You're still a trainer, I assume, and you wrote a book of poetry. So we want to get to know you a little bit better. Tell us a little bit more about you.
Well, yeah, my name's Mark Connor. I'm from St. Paul, Minnesota. I refer to myself as a literary pugilist, which is to say that I'm a writer who's a boxer. I'm a boxer who's a writer. The only two things in my life I've ever been really good at are boxing and writing. Um, and I haven't been an actual competitive fighter for many years now. I do train boxers. Um, um, I do a personal training service, so I train recreational boxers who just, want to be in shape, and they pay me a little bit of money to be healthy and know some self-defense. And I also work with competitive boxers. I was working with a professional this summer. The fight fell through. I haven't been training a lot of professionals lately, but I was, although I didn't have a professional career myself, I had a real unique uh, a privileged kind of experience with boxing trainers and teammates because of the three guys who really were the primary kind of elders that were trainers I worked with growing up. Each of them produced one world champion out of their gyms at a certain point. And a couple of those guys I was my partners with and everything. And so I had a kind of a close-up view of how a world champion is developed. But then I'm also a writer. I write about boxing. I write about uh, just about life in general. And actually, the book is called "It's About Time." Millions of copies sold for Dad. That's the parenthetical subtitle. It's about time, millions of copies sold for Dad, and it's a book that I wrote to deal with having lost my dad on September 30th of 2019. I wrote the book in early 2021 after a year's worth of mourning. But it's not just, I mean, the jacket description is it starts like this. It's about time. Millions of copies sold for Dad is a saga wrapped around a package of poems guarded by angels. And that description is, it's a story. It's written in the form of a novel, but it's an autobiography, and it tells this story. And there are poems running through it. There were 20 poems running through it. So it's actually there is a collection of poetry in there, but it's not just a book of poems, a collection of poetry collection. And there's an autobiography in there, but it's not just an autobiography. They're wrapped together. So yeah.
Whenever you lost your father, I mean, I lost my father as well, and it affected me, but I assume that it must have hit you a lot harder than what mine did.
Well, I don't know if it hit me harder than it did you. We were talking about just before the interview about your family. You're married, have children, you got grandkids already. We're roughly the same age, and um, I just look. I don't. Some people may think I'm crazy. I still hold on to hope. I want to find a woman young enough to have kids with me, and and uh, I mean, and I think that's a real natural thing to still be thinking about. But when my father died, that was one of the things I looked at. I said, it didn't work out with this girl. It didn't work out with that girl. I was like, I I need more time. Just look at him. I was like, I need more time, and I hadn't published a book. And we'd had this. We'd even had this bit of an argument about it, roughly 10 years earlier, and he was right and kind of hassling me about basically, you hold on to things too long. You try to get things perfect before you release them. So why don't you just get something written and put it out there and just see what happens and move on to the next thing? And that was kind of the point of actually writing the book. Yeah. So yeah, I can share portions of it with you, or I can
Oh yeah,
uh,
yeah.
the story I just told you, um, at the uh, at the end of chapter one, what happens is I explain that. So there's this poem that I wrote at the end of chapter one. Uh, so there's a sentence that goes before it. I was heartbroken. After our final conversation, I felt literally that I'd been beaten up, though no one ever laid a hand on me. We were almost halfway around together, but now we were a world apart. On Sunday, March 31, waking up on my couch, I wrote the next poem, Life So Simple. Well, that tells you that was a young lady I was talking about. Okay. Life so simple. As if to pray, you start today in meditation on your bicycle wheel, the separate spokes united in the center. You want me to be blunt, you say. I want to be direct, but fear I'll frighten you away. The final action is the original intention. This statement is authentically true, not just my invention. My responsibility is to you, a comfort for my rest, a respect in my behavior, helping you to be your best. You can push me away, invite me to stay, or walk with me today, but we met for a reason, to teach each other and to learn. Such a fact comes not from acts, but is a grace we did not earn. Demons distract, demons lie, and demons discourage us from our destiny till we die. Friends encourage, friends assist, and friends persist with love on which we rely. Your guardian angel already talked to mine. Together they have watched us share laughter and argue to the point of crying. You know they're sent by God who really does exist and is not a tyrant or a terrorist. Rather, he is love, family, life, held in common at the core. You and I, specific spokes, united in the center, spinning round from place to place, and nothing more. There were some other poems I put together qualifying for appropriate inclusion in this book. I've always held myself, of course, to the highest of standards, never believing any of these poems ready for an attempt at publication. So I never tried, which is why I so embarrassingly titled the story, It's About Time. Dad challenged me once, as far back, I believe, as 2012, asking me why by the age of 40 I hadn't published at least one book. If I really was a writer, as I asserted myself to be, I should have been able to publish at least 5 novels or other books by then. I told him to lay off, that there were legitimate reasons for current incompletion, and that literary success was on its way. But that was all an excuse. The real reason was a lie in my heart that my work was going to be great. I just needed time to concentrate, which is always delayed right now for the job or the friend in trouble or another excuse, which justified not trying. The truth is, I was scared, so I never dared. If this book, which can fall flat on its face, is never presented to the public, I'll never know if you, the reader, recognize my talent. If it does, in fact, fall flat in its face, at least metaphorically, I fall flat on mine. However, so what? It's about time.
Yeah, I try to be as open as I can when I do my show, and I hope people understand where I'm coming from. And this is going to sound cruel, but when my father passed away, it was almost a relief. And the reason why I say that, he uh he had a lot of medical problems. One of he had epilepsy, and it affected him where I mean it was almost like he was going crazy. And I mean, it hit me. Don't get me wrong, it hit me. But my father was never there for me. He never inspired me. He didn't really notice I was there. but it still hurt me. But then I knew that he wasn't going to have to suffer anymore, which is why said maybe it affected you a lot differently than it did when my
Yeah.
father passed. What what was your relationship like? Because I say me and my father just didn't click.
Well, so a little bit later in the book, I talk about my dad. My dad's a pretty intense guy.
Mhm.
He's he was a most of my life he was an independent insurance agent. He was a first lieutenant platoon leader in Vietnam and was wounded a couple of weeks before his 24th birthday. And he was he worked with DAV, VFW, and Military of the Purple Heart my entire life up till to the day they died. And there was a point where he uh had said to me, I was about, I was helping train I was helping train a professional boxer. Um, I was I was trying to get in shape because I wanted to have a fight before I was too late to have a fight in my mid 30s, which I wasn't even telling him. I was trying to revise a novel. I was working this overnight shift on the weekends. I was trying to get my personal training business going. I was trying to get ready. So I was doing so much stuff. He says to me, in your adult life, I haven't spent enough time with you. I want you to commit to spending once a week having breakfast with me. And I told him I couldn't do it. He said to me, fine, maybe you can come spend time with me at my funeral, right? That's the way he said it. And it hit me so hard as I agreed to him. And so like the last 15 years, we had breakfast once a week. Okay. But now when I say that, that's this really amazing thing. Okay, and I feel sorry for people that didn't have that kind of relationship with their dad, right? But at the same time, in my mid 20s, my mid late 20s, I was going through some stuff. We were fighting. We could hardly be in the same room together.
Mhm.
We fought like cats and dogs, like crazy. And and uh, and my mother had even told me one time, I feel like we're kind of like we're losing you. And that was between ages 27, 28. So we had it's not like it's not like we didn't have our problems and stuff like that. So. Uh, it's hard to say because um we we don't really know. There's this novel by Milan Kundera, the Czech author, about the time when the Soviet Union had taken over Czechoslovakia, called The Unbearable Lightness of Being. And the whole concept of the unbearable lightness of being is that life is light. There's in terms of right because there's isn't that much meaning to it. You can't because you don't have any previous experience on which to make these to which to make the decisions that is really critical to your life. And so it's as if you can't really have a meaning to it because you don't know what this decision how it's going to result for the rest of your life because you've never been in this position before, and that lightness is almost unbearable.
Yeah.
Um, which is I'm going to get tangential on that, so I'll bring myself back. Um, what I'm saying is, I think that we have to be able to forgive ourselves and forgive the people in our lives for not quite living up to everything we think they should live up to, because my father didn't live up to everything I thought he should have lived up to. I look back now and I'm just grateful that he was there, even though he wasn't perfect, because um I would have, there are many times in my life I would have said, yeah, man, well, I wish my father were this way or that way, and so that's all I can say about it. Um, that's all I can say about it. It's just hard. It's hard for us. Men are men are kind of hard with each other anyway, so we don't really know exactly how to relate to each other sometimes.
This is true. This is true.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, we talked a little bit before the show started. You work with some Native American children there in St. Paul?
Right, right. So I worked at this place called Anda Young, and which is the Ojibwe language. It's AIN, and the second word is DAH, and the last word is YUNG. It's Anda Young, which means our home in Ojibwe. Center. It was called a temporary emergency homeless shelter for um, children aged 5 to 17. And it was so it's a Native American Indian run. It grew out of what was called the Red Schoolhouse, which was a project of AIM, that's the American Indian Movement, and then it became independent. And I worked there from 1996 through 2009. And some of the time I worked in full-time positions, some of the time I worked uh permanent part-time positions, sometimes I was on call. And uh the year before that, a friend of mine had taken me to a Sundance ceremony down on the Rosebud Reservation in South Dakota, which I went every summer to for 3 summers. And then s- uh Darwin Strong, who is the was the husband of Gabby Strong, who was the executive director of Anda Young when I worked there. He was took a real liking to me and knew I wanted to learn about stuff. And he is a helper, Sundance helper uh, for a Sundance in Kyle, South Dakota, which is down in Piners Reservation. And he convinced me to go with them 1999 through 2003. And so I learned a lot about that tradition. And I'm raised, baptized, confirmed a Catholic, and I always had this faith. I had this kind of my understanding of God, and my understanding through my Catholic faith of the nature of God. Um, I everything that I learned within the Lakota tradition was something that in my understanding was because of how I perceived God as a Catholic, was that yeah, it made sense what they thought and what they believed. And so uh, I actually was following that tradition to a certain point. And then I talk about this in the book that at a certain point between 2003 2007, I started to re-embrace my Catholic faith much more strongly. And what was really uh, reinforcing to me was that within that community, I wasn't discouraged from re-embracing my Catholic faith. And so I have maintained kind of a balance in terms of my my respect for what's called walking on the red road. Um, and I describe a little bit about I describe something about the sweat lodge in there, about how um there's a belief during the sweat lodge that the rocks on which the water's poured and the heat's coming, that during the prayers that the ancestors come and dance on those rocks, and they listen to the prayers that are being prayed, and then at the end they carry those prayers back to God. And the that belief is parallel to the Catholic belief, which is really is a Christian belief. It's it's mainline Christianity believes in the communion of saints,
Right.
right? Which is to say that, we can communicate. Our the people who've gone before us pray for us. And we have that community. It's a family of God. So that kind of thing, that parallel was something that made me really comfortable. Helped me uh, to move in this other community that was different from me, but still was accepting me kind of as both as a guest and as a relative. And uh, so I also talk about in the book the point of merger of difference and unity. That there's something we have to find the truth that exists in our different traditions, and try to understand that with each other and find out how that brings us to the larger truth, rather than, there are always going to be parts of our own traditions, our own backgrounds that we hold on to, but that doesn't mean that we have to make people who are different from us get rid of what they have that's not in common with us. As long as if we can find that piece that's in common and concentrate on that.
We definitely have
So
more in common than we realize. I wish more people would think that way.
yeah,
So,
so
where can folks get your book?
okay, so um the best way to get it would be to go to my website, boxersandwritersmagazine.com. Specifically, the book. If you go to boxersandwritersmagazine.com, it you'll see the book page, but you can also just go to boxersandwritersmagazine.com and put a slash books in the address bar, and that brings you right to the books page. And the books page has two venues from which you can get it. One is Amazon, the other is Lulu. Lulu is Lulu. And the Amazon allows you to get a Kindle version if you want to, but otherwise you get the paperbacks. And if you get to St. Paul, Minnesota, it's currently in a Irish gift shop called Irish on Grand, on Grand Avenue, right off of Lexington Parkway, and you can ask for it in any bookstore. In fact, I'd appreciate if if you stop into a Barnes and Noble and say, "Hey, man, I'd like to get this book," they will order it for you. Um, well, you can get it in any bookstore at all, but it's not on the shelves. You have to actually ask for it. So the best way is to go boxersandwritersmagazine.com/books, and you'll be able to click on a way to order it online right there.
And I'm assuming people can get to your social media from your website.
Absolutely, they can. But yeah, you can. You can get to my Facebook and stuff like that. I have a Substack that am starting to pick up some activity on. I just started it last March, uh 24. It's called Irish Catholic Punch Drunk in St. Paul. That's that's I've got an actual address for that, but yeah, it's called Irish Catholic Punch Drunk in St. Paul, and it's at uh, Mark Connor icpunchdrunk.substack.com.
What I can
Um,
do is I could put those links in the description so people can go there and get to it a lot quicker.
okay.
And Mark, thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. I have about a million more things I'd like to say, so I can't do that, I'm sure, because we don't have the time. But uh, it's good. I need to get some practice and kind of honing things in, trying to, but make more points. But as I read that portion at the end of chapter one to you,
Mhm.
I hope people can kind of see the themes that are in there. I mean, there's that theme of guardian angels going through the book, and the portion where I say, your guardian angel already talked to mine. Together they've watched us share laughter and argue to the point of crying. Their sent from God really does exist, and is not a tyrant or terrorist. Rather, he is love, family, life. Love, family, and life are really the themes that I'm trying to really communicate with the book, and that's why I'm talking about the value of fatherhood and the value of family. At the end of the book, I'm talking about mourning my father, and the riots happened in the Twin Cities, and I was called to help protect Native American Indian buildings with AIM Patrol, and uh, really the cohesion of family. I think has a lot to the breakdown of the family has a lot to do with whether we're stable as a country. And I really want people to understand, whether you've got a stable family or not, to understand these values and to understand that we are, you know, we're all fellow citizens in this country, and we need to treat each other as family. And you know, that kind of thing is what I'm hoping. I'm hoping that people see that I've written this book as a message of hope for all of us, and I hope they find encouragement in it. Ultimately,
You're gonna have to come back so we can talk on this further.
I hope so. I would really love it. I really appreciate it, Kyle. Thank you for having me, man. I'm very
Oh,
grateful.
oh, of course, man. And I also want to thank all you folks out there. If you are new to the channel, I hope you'll come back. Please hit that subscribe button. From our regulars, you guys are awesome because you make it possible for me to do this. Till the next one, everyone, please take care. Be kind to one another. God bless and peace.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of Listen to the Vibes. You can catch us on Buzzsprout or wherever you listen to your favourite podcasts. And on YouTube. Follow us on Facebook at The Vibes Broadcast Network